Alright, so here's what we've come up with. After talking with the customer and explaining to him what we found, about how we have a nice signal coming back that we can just add RCAs to, he's not really big on the whole idea of the EQ. We were going to do an EQ when we thought we had some issues that we were gonna have to fix. He's really not into time alignment. He's like, no, I just like my sound, you know. He likes rear fill and he likes everything. That's why we're doing 6x9s in the back and not 6.5s in the door that we're gonna add delay to and all that fun stuff. He's like, no, I wanna hear them. I'm like, okay, cool. It has a 3-band EQ built into the radio, bass, mid, treble. He's used to those, he's comfortable with those. So what we decided to do is leave the EQ out of the equation for right now. The nice thing about things like the DSR1 is that they're RCA in, RCA out, power ground accessory, real easy to install later on, and they're small, they're like this big. If he decides he wants to add one down the road, we've already discussed it'd be simple enough to add in if he wants more adjustment, the 32 bands and all that other stuff. But right out of the gate, he's like, you know what? No, I think I'm gonna pass on that for right now. What can I do for power? We're gonna do this guy. This is the T1005. For those of you guys that haven't seen this is a 5-channel amp. This one's speccing in at 1190 watts. It's about the size of a carton of cigarettes, for those of you guys that know what that is. So we're gonna hide this in the car somewhere. He also said he wants a bass knob, so we're gonna go with this guy. This is the bass knob for that amp. This is a PLC2, so that'll give us control. And then the other cool thing is if you do one of these, this is a Rockford Power Kit. They actually extend the warranty for you as long as you have somebody like us put it in. So it has to be installed by, you know, like a Rockford dealer. They give you an extra year warranty, so that means now this gets a 2-year warranty as opposed to a 1-year warranty. That's pretty cool, Fernando, right? My thoughts exactly. So now the question is, where are we gonna put it in the car? The top end and seat. Now, ideally we wanna try to go somewhere up front here, like underneath one of the seats. This is an 8-gauge kit, and that would be a short enough run to where we can get away with using 8-gauge, because these amplifiers, all of these amplifiers, only have an 8-gauge input. If we have to go to the trunk with it, then we're gonna swap this kit out for a 4-gauge kit, and we're gonna use the distribution block, because it's a longer run, so we're gonna be drawing way more. Yeah. Let's hop in and see if it'll fit. Under the seat it's gonna be. Let me show you. So this is the room we have to deal with. The amplifier is pretty much side to side. There is about a 1.5 inch gap on the side, and that's okay because the only thing that actually runs into the amp is this guy here, which is the power wire. On this end, the RCAs, there are no RCAs. It's just these plugs right here. The RCAs are attached via an actual plug. We don't have to worry about them sticking out and taking up a bunch of room. The plan is to build a T-shaped bracket that goes up and along, and we'll screw up underneath these bolts and then be flat where this is, so that this just slides right underneath there. We bolt it in place and you're good to go. He rides with his seat pretty much all the way back. He's a tall fella. So we are gonna use the 8-gauge for this because the battery is right up there. So it's only gonna be like a 6-foot run. Plenty for what we're trying to do here. Let's build a bracket. Let's get the seat out. So much to do.
So the first thing we're gonna do is make sure where the screws are. They normally have one on the window switches right here, like in the top. The second one they normally have in the handle. Grab your angle pry tool and pick tool, I'm sorry. Pop it out, be careful. And for this one, it's a torque, and that's a T15. Then you're gonna grab your plastic pry tool. And carefully. There you go. Now in this corner, it looks like this one comes out first. There you go. Sometimes the clips stay in, so just take it out, put it back in so you don't lose it. There you go. This is our normal GM bracket.
Real quick, this is the factory speaker, this guy right here. See this stuff right here? This is foam. Now, you guys ask, why do I need fast rings? See this groove right there? That's from where the door panel sits on top of this. Factory uses fast rings. So when you're replacing your speakers, add fast rings. It's going to make sure that that sound all comes through the door panel. I can't stress that enough. You guys, some of you guys out there get it because you come and go, I can't believe they didn't add. This is why. They're like 30 bucks. It's totally worth the extra money to do it. I get it if you're buying a $79 set of speakers or a $59 set of speakers, that's half the price of the speaker. I totally understand. But this is a piece of crap and it has it. And these don't sound too bad right out of the get-go. Just a thought.
like we say, we're gonna use fast rings. It came with 3 pieces. The big piece is gonna be all the way to the back. Now the second piece is gonna be behind the speaker like this, and the third piece is gonna be in the end. For these brackets, we're gonna use the Best Kits BKGM SB 356. So this is like factory fit. You can use the factory 7mm, and we also like to put 2 screws just to make sure it's really tight and it doesn't move. But before that, we're gonna put some foam in the back of the bracket and in the front. So now that we have our wires in here, we're going back to the notes they didn't make, and we have to see which one is going to be the positive and negative. Our notes say yellow is positive, yellow black is negative. So we have all the roadkill in the back and the front. The last piece of the puzzle that's gonna be the fast ring.
So to remove the seat, it's a T50 Torx. Now in case you're wondering, removing seat bolts can be some of the hardest bolts in the cars to get out because they use Loctite to hold them in place. And they used a lot in these. Now the neat thing about these seats in this particular car is there's only 2 screws that hold them in, those ones here in the back that we just took out. Once you get those out, you just lift up on the seat and kind of pull backwards. There's these little hooks in the front, and then you can lift up the seat, and in this case, pushed it all the way forward. The seat rails are out of the way. So now we'll get a tape measure, take some measurements. So the basic shape we want is gonna be like a T, and the width we have going across is 13 inches, and the depth we're gonna have 8 inches. So we're gonna need about 4.5 inches off of the width to make these bends here. We need to cut out a piece that's 22 by 8, and then we'll cut out the extra pieces. So let's head over to the saw. So we have our basic T-shape all set, ready to go. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna heat these sides up here and here, get it into the car, and let it mimic the shape of the floor. So we went ahead and heated up the first bend. It's gonna be the bottom one, so we can get this in nice and flat. Wear gloves, this stuff's hot. And we'll go ahead and mark where we need to heat up for our next bend. Let's take it back over the bench and heat it up. Do one side at a time. Now once you get it kind of cool, what you can do is run some water over it, and that'll lock it in place. Now we just need to mark where the holes are for the seat so we can drill those. So make sure when you drill the holes, you drill them so they're big enough so that all the screws and pins will go back in. And at this point, we're gonna go ahead and test fit it back into place. Make sure we have all the clearance and everything will work. Go ahead and latch the seat in place. The pins go in. We can see our screw holes, they're good. The amplifier will mount just like this right here. We went ahead and slid the seat back while the camera was off just to make sure. So we're good. Now all we need to do is get this thing screwed in place, start running the wires. Now how the wires are gonna go is the power is gonna go up that way, and all the signal and speakers are actually gonna come back this way because the amplifier is back here. And that's the plan anyways. See how it goes.
The tweeter actually fits really nice in the factory location. This one just pop out, have clips. I just put this one in really tight. I'm gonna put the cover, that's the foam that they come with the Alpine tweeters, and that's it. So the crossover, we put it on the side. You pop this panel out and the crossover is gonna stay there.
So naturally, we don't like to cut the harnesses if we can avoid it. We have tons of harnesses. We go through the inventory. We try to find them. We order them online. We scour the internet to try to find harnesses so we don't have to cut them. This is no different. We don't want to cut these. We have 3 harnesses that are close, I think, to what we need. One is our Car AV Volvo harness that we've used. This is the 12032. And then we have 2 other harnesses for the signal. One is the American International, which is packed, but for some reason this one doesn't make it into the pack line. The GWH46, I don't know, he's got it scribbled out. Anyways, it's this guy here. And then we have a Metro harness, which is this one, which is a 702104. One of these harnesses will probably plug in. We need 2 of them, so let's head to the back and see what we got. Now the first one up is going to be for speakers. That's the Volvo harness. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, that plugs in. It's pin drung, of course, but that's okay. And really, we need just 2 wires off of this, just the front 2. The rear 2 are on the main power plug. We'll just run wires to those because I don't want to cut this for 4 wires. The next one is the signal, which is kind of more important. Ooh, wow, plugs right in. All right, so this American International harness plugs right into that. There again, it's not pinned right at all, but that's okay. At least we can plug into it. Cool, let's take these over to the bench and we'll modify them to how we need them. All right, for this, we're just gonna use our pin extraction tool to go ahead and remove these. Now, if you've never used a pin extraction tool, practice. Meaning go to for this, we don't need this orange or this blue wire, so we can practice on those 2 and get an idea of what we need to do in order to get out the ones we actually do need. In this case, there's just a little tooth inside of here that you have to lift up on to get the wire out. That's not to say it's easy, it's actually kind of a pain. All right, let's head over to the car and we'll repin this harness. So we'll take our notes that we wrote down earlier and we'll start with whatever yellow in the corner is here. That's gonna be 2, so that's gonna be our grays. So yellow is negative, brown, blue is positive. All right. So we have our signal harness all set and ready to go. Now we'll just repeat the process on this, our speaker harness, and we'll be all set. Now one of the neat features of this amplifier are these guys right here. These are the inputs to the amplifier. Now this amplifier will take high level or low level. If you were to do high level, all you do is cut this guy off here, the RCA, just remove it, and you just speaker, boom, right on. If you're doing low level, you just plug this in. In this case, we're doing low level, but we're gonna hook it up with just regular speaker wires, these guys here. All we have to do is run our wire between here, solder this on, and this will be a direct plug-in into the amplifier. It's kind of cool. So now it's time to get started on wiring up the amplifier. But before we do that, let's take a look at this amplifier real quick. Now on the end of the amplifier right here, it says 2-channel or 4-channel. For us, we are gonna be doing a 4-channel. The reason why it is a 2-channel input is because they also make a marine version of this amplifier. So you could take a Bluetooth input, plug it directly into input 1, and populate all the inputs here with just 2 channels of input. Makes it kind of nice, and also expands the installation options. Now on the surface of the amplifier, we also have a bunch of switches as well. This one here asks us, do we have a sub input? In this case, we don't have a sub input. We just have front and rear, so we're gonna leave it to off. Subsonic Filter. What Subsonic Filter does is that's a high pass crossover for the subwoofer. It helps to cut out some of the unwanted, really low frequencies that the subwoofer might not create, thus making the amplifier run a little bit more efficient. We're gonna go ahead and turn that on for right now. We can always turn it off later. We have the crossover switches for channels 1, can be high pass, all pass, or low pass. We're gonna put it on high pass. We're gonna do the same for rear. The subwoofer automatically comes, there's no on and off, it's automatically crossed over. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and turn our frequencies up to 80 Hertz. That's a default setting we like to do. Now the subwoofer crossover comes set to 250. We're going to go ahead and turn that down to 80. We're going to go ahead and put the bass EQ up on the subwoofer only and make sure that it's down on the rest. By up, we're going to put it at about halfway. That way it'll give us some room for tuning. Input level, we're going to turn that all the way down on all the channels. Now we have this amplifier set up and ready to go into the car as far as this section is concerned. One other thing we have on this is this guy right here. This is the power plug, and this is actually made to come off. Let's go ahead and wiggle it a little bit. Also next to it is the subwoofer channel as well. On this end of the amplifier, we have our output for front and rear here. That's gonna take one of these style plugs. It's gonna clip right into it. Now let's go ahead and get it mounted to our bracket and get this thing wired up. The amplifier is wired up. So what we got going on is out this side here, it's gonna run up along the hump into the back is the signal wire. That's gonna get attached to this guy here. And then on this side, we have the speaker wire, this group, which is also, this is gonna run along the side here, come across the back of the seat, meet up with this and run into the trunk. It's gonna go across the front of the seat area and up behind and over and through the woods to grandmother's house. And then we have the power and ground, which are here. The subwoofer, which is gonna also run along the back. It's gonna stay on this side though. It's not gonna cross over. And then we have our sub-level control, which is gonna run up front with the power wire. So this is the amplifier all set and ready to go. We're gonna go ahead and get this in the car and start running some wires. So we have our signal and our speaker wire from the amplifier run back here, all zip tied up along the factory wiring harness to this guy. So what we want to do is go ahead and solder on our 2 plugs. Now a little trick for the heat shrink. You don't want the heat shrink to constantly keep sliding around on this. What we do is we slide it on, and then we zip tie it up in place so it stays out of the way until we're ready for it. So for those of you that never heard of speed wire before, speed wire is a 9-conductor wire. It has a remote turn on, has a pair of whites, pair of grays, pair of greens, pair of purples to match a standard aftermarket harness. It's great for something like this where we're going to need it for signal coming from the amplifier as well as output into a factory amplifier, but you can run it anywhere in the car. For this, we're just going to be connecting the fronts to this, and we're going to be running rear wires over and plug them into here. So all we have to solder into this one is the left and right fronts. On this particular harness, this harness is a real pain in the butt to rip pin. Typically I just don't bother with it. I just try to move around as many of them as I can to get what I need, and then I leave it alone. So what I did is I have whites, I have grays, little heat shrink on there. Now what we need to do is match them up with their corresponding colors here to get the right positive and negative. Now one other thing that we tested that we forgot to mention is on the harness coming from the radio, this guy here that we made, there is a yellow green wire right over here, these 2 that weren't doing anything. This yellow green wire is remote turn on or accessory, so we went back in and pinned in a blue white to turn on the amplifier. To test that, you would simply just use your digital multimeter, set the DC, turn on and off the car, and it'll get power, and then it won't have power. So for the rears, we're just gonna go ahead and put some quick disconnects on here so that if we need to, we can unplug them. So we'll just wait for those speaker wires, plug them in, and then we'll have rear. So for the most part, we're done back here. But we're gonna wait to put the side panel on until Fernando gets the rear speakers in, plug them in, we'll build the whole back of the car back up. Fernando just called me over. He just finished working on the rear deck, getting the R-type speakers in it. Let's take a look.
Roadkill Ultimate.
Now, for those of you unfamiliar with Ultimate, it has the standard butyl, the standard aluminum, but then it adds this cool layer of foam onto it, which is awesome for rear decks.
Really nice. Also, we made panel.
We didn't have one that fit, huh?
No, we don't. We made 1/2-inch Centra, and we put the foam around it. New wires run.
And this is the wire I was talking about that we were running. We already went ahead, and as you can see, it came down along here and we went ahead and connected it all up. Our rear speakers are in. Now the foam, as you know, is so that when we put the rear deck in, it'll go ahead and push all that wonderful R-Type sound right through the rear deck.